This is going to be the double caulken hind for the Shreveport, Louisiana WCB National Championship. This shoe is a left hind. It's got 8 nail holes, a thickened or upset toe, and 2 really nice massive heel caulks for traction. Looking at the picture, the lateral caulk has a lot more material in it. It's a bigger, it's not necessarily a taller caulk, it's a little bit, it has more mass, more volume. It's a little bit wider, a little bit more deep. So to do that, I'm gonna just get a quick heat on the lateral heel, and I'm gonna upset that approximately 1/4 to 1/2 of an inch, just to add more volume so that I can have a more dominant heel caulk. And then what that enables me to do is turn up the exact same amount for both heel caulks, but this one is going to be a thicker, bolder section, so it's going to make a thicker, more massive heel caulk. You could easily do this by turning up more material on the lateral side and forging that heel caulk to a bigger dimension. But then if I do that, then I have to figure out where I'm going to put my toe mark. I'm already going to have to offset this shoe about 3/16 of an inch so that I have a shorter, sweeter inside or medial branch and a wider, coarser, bolder lateral branch. But if I'm going to try and get that mass in the heel caulk just by turning up more, then I've got to figure out how much more I'm going to turn up, and then I've got to offset that center punch that much more. But by upsetting this, all I have to do is, after I upset it, find my center, offset my mark, 3/16 of an inch, bump my toe, turn my toe, build my heel caulk, and all I have to do is turn up the same amount, and this heel caulk will automatically be a bigger lateral heel caulk. I don't need any marks for that. All I have to do is just get one end of the steel hot. That's 16 inches of 1¼ inch by 1/2. This is 17 inches of 1¼ inch by 1/2. I'm going to demonstrate an agricultural hind draft shoe. It's going to have the Scottish heel caulks. It's going to be 3/4 fullered. It's going to have a toe clip. This one, I am going to bump the toe, but I don't need to bump the outside heel or anything like that, so I can go ahead and mark my steel now. So 1/2 of 17 inches is 8½. I'm not a mathematician, so I'm going to double check by going from 0 to 8½. Then I'm going to measure from that mark to the other end. That's 8½. So I've marked it dead center. I need to offset it so that I have an inside and an outside branch. So I'll zero my ruler out to an even number and put that right on my mark, and then I'll offset accordingly. For this shoe, I'm going to offset it 3/16 of an inch toward the medial side. I'll make that mark a little longer so that I know that that's my center mark now. This is going to be my lateral heel, so I'm going to put a center punch mark here. I always mark my shoes to where my center punch mark is toward the outer edge, where my toe clip's going to be. It's on the leading edge of the shoe. My lateral heel mark I always do on the inside edge of the web for a very specific reason. When I have my toe heat, a lot of times it's very easy to lose that center punch mark in the slag. And I don't want to take time to brush it to find my center punch mark to figure out where to make my toe bend. But my heel's not going to be hot, so I'll see right away that this is the inside edge where my center punch mark is. And if I know that's the inside edge of my outside branch, all I have to do is grab that with my tongs with the center punch mark facing upward and just start making my toe bend somewhere in the middle of that steel. And as I hit it, the slag will fall off, and I'll be able to define where my center punch mark is. Your center punch is one of your most precision tools. You use it for laying out your shoe. It should be sharp. It should have a long enough taper to where you can actually see where the center of your center punch is going to make the mark. If it's dull and rounded and you don't have much of a taper here, you can't actually see where you're making your center punch mark. And all it takes is being off a 32nd of an inch either way, and your shoe can be completely racked. I make a nice deep mark that I can always see. If you just do a very shallow center punch mark, when you start forging and running your edges, it will disappear. And we don't want that. All right, you don't need much of a heat to bump that heel up. When I'm bumping, I'm looking through my steel toward the anvil where I want the energy of my hammer to go. Holding my hammer loosely and letting the hammer do the work. I'm not trying to muscle it in. I'm also not trying to push down and hold my steel to the anvil. All that's going to do is accentuate the bend. We want to keep that as straight as possible. I'll just let that steel hover above the anvil. You can see the steel's starting to bell out. So I'm going to gather it back up to 1 1/4 inches wide. But then that volume's going to go to thickness now that I've gathered up the width. And that's what I want. All right, now that I've bumped that up, now I can put my center punch mark. I put just a little bit over 1/2 inch in there. So now my measurement's 15.5. That's actually 15 1/4. So I put 3/4 inch in that. That would be 7 5/8. I'm going to double check my math. 7 5/8. All right, now I'll zero that out to an even number, and I'll move that mark over 3/16 inch toward the medial side. All right, I've got a good fireman. He got my heat centrally located. I don't need to quench it. Now it's just a matter of bumping. I don't need a whole lot, just a little bit to help that toe blend into the branches. The branches are going to get wider when I fuller them, and the toe's going to get thinner when I bend it. So I'm just compensating for that. I'm not trying to make a thickened toe. I'm just trying to make a uniform section through the toe. And that'll be plenty. That's 3/4 inch. Once again, just hold my hammer loosely, letting the hammer do the work. I'm not trying to muscle it. As soon as it bends, straighten it out. To be good at bumping, you got to be good at straightening. Letting that steel hover above the anvil. I believe this shoe is going to be a graduated shoe. It's going to be thicker at the toe and graduate down to the heel cocks. So right away I'm going to thin the inside of the web with what heat is left over from my bumping heat. Just holding the shoe at a slight bit of an angle to protect the outer edge, and then looking at the inside edge and hitting with a half-face blow. That's doing two things. It's widening my section, it's thinning the inside so that it'll bend easier, and it's compensating for the thickness that I'm going to gain when I make that bend. When you make the toe bend, all the molecules get compressed on the inside edge. The outside edge, they get stretched and pulled apart and thin. So I'm compensating. This is not going to get as thick, so it'll be a lot easier to get rid of my sole pressure now. That was about 3/4 inch also. So I'm going to try and make my bend with my tongs, not with my hammer. I've got my tongs in a strong position, just past a 90-degree angle to the steel. The steel is all the way into the back of the boss. My tongs are solid. Now I'm just gonna hit past my center punch mark away from me, just dropping my hammer and pushing up on my tongs. Flip it around, do the same thing to the other side. Now that I've got an arc in the shoe, now I'll finish the bend off on the horn. I'll put my center punch mark over the center of the horn, get my tongs pointing up at me, solidly locked into the steel. I'm gonna push that down, I'm gonna hit above the daylight. I don't wanna forge this into the horn. Find my center punch, locate it over the top of the horn, rotate it backward, hit over the daylight, and bending with my tongs.
Shoving it in toward the horn?
Yes. Now to tighten my toe, I'm gonna stand it up on the heel. I'm gonna hit right about where my full ring would start. Whatever you do to one side, do to the other.
You don't hit out on the end of it there ever.
No, you're hitting tight. Hitting tight to the toe, right about where your full ring would start. What this does is it keeps me from pinching stuff up over the horn trying to tighten that. And it helps, it almost bumps the toe. Most of these draft hinds, I find you can't hardly get them tight enough to begin with. Everything you do is gonna open that toe from here on out. I'm gonna get it just a bit tighter than what I want. All right, if I can get, as we can see, just like I said, the inside edge thickens up when you bend it. That went from being a 1/2 inch to almost 3/4 of an inch thick. And the outside edge of my toe is just under a 1/2 inch thick. So we need to move that material from the inside to the outside. Gotta get a striker. Just look at the inside edge. I got it, thank you. This has gotten a little cold from me talking, but I'm not deep seating the shoe. I'm just hitting flat, looking at the inside edge of the section, which causes my hammer to hit it with a 1/2 face blow. By doing that and hitting flat, it thins the inside edge. I'm not deep seating it with the round side, just creating a thinner inner edge and a thicker outer edge. To mark my full ring, I'm going to set my calipers at 1 5/8 inches. I'm going to make my mark of my full ring just to the inside of the center of stock for the lateral branch. Go ahead and hit it this time. There we go. On the medial branch, I'm going to put it exactly in the center of stock. That's good.